Welcome to Let's Argue with Jay Playhard. I am your host, Jay, returning after a few weeks off for the summer. It's been a crazy one. I've been spending it with family and friends and loved ones and all that good stuff. But now it's back to work. Now it's back to sports and it's back to what we love. You know what I'm saying? I'm actually on my way to London for the first time to the UK with my significant other. We're going to be traveling her home country and checking out all the different things. We may even get over to Wembley Stadium. I am not sure yet, but I am excited about that. But first, we've got to tap in and we got some topics to talk about here in the NBA and WNBA. First, and foremost would probably be Bronny James, son of LeBron James of the LA Lakers, going 55th to that same team. The first time a father and son will play together in an NBA setting. This is historical. This is huge. I've seen some people say nepotism. I've seen some people say it's a great thing. I'm of the belief that it is a great thing. Anytime a father and son can get together and make their dreams come true, I'm always for that. So LeBron also signed a 2-year, $104 million extension with the Lakers to stay in LA, but it does kind of leave them strapped as far as finding another superstar to pair him and Anthony Davis. But at this point in LeBron's career, I think it's safe to say that having Bronny drafted is a big feather in the cap. Not to say that he's not hungry for a new NBA title. Moving on for a little bit, we're going to talk about free agency. Going to keep it right there. Paul George had some interesting comments about his negotiations with the LA Clippers yesterday at the time of this recording. Today's the 9th of July, 2024. But Paul George just recently signed with the Philadelphia 76ers to team up with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey and to challenge those Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference, excuse me. But on his podcast, the Podcast P podcast, he kept it real about these contract talks. According to him, he was originally offered a 2-year, $60 million deal to stay with the Clippers. Obviously, a max player like Paul George could get way more than that in free agency. And then after this season, where he played 74 games, they came back with 3 years, 150 million. Now, Paul did say he was willing to take a deal similar to Kawhi Leonard's. In the case that, the 3 years, 150 million, that was close to what Kawhi was getting. But he also asked for a no trade clause if he was to take that 3 years, 150. And it seems this is where the negotiations fell apart for the Clippers and for George himself. George says that it wasn't personal. The decision to move to Philly wasn't personal, but he had to secure the bag, which he did with Philly. And I personally think it gives him a clearer path to the finals. Not to say that Kawhi Leonard isn't a great player, James Harden and those guys, but it's safe to say that at this point in their careers, Joel Embiid is kind of that rare piece that you need to get over the hump, but he's going to need help. So you add a guy like Paul George in that mix, a two-way guy who can hit the three. I think it's going to be a very tough night defensively for a lot of NBA teams when you match those three up and with the other two guys that they put on the court. OKC, in my opinion, has been the winner so far in free agency. I mean, you add Alex Caruso from the Chicago Bulls, you get him out of a bad situation. He's going to be motivated to play, and he's one of those guys who impacts the game in so many different ways that it's hard to see it on the stat sheet every night. But trust me, this guy is important to winning. Just ask the LA Lakers. I bet you they could take a little Alex Caruso right now. Now, the Thunder also signed Isaiah Hartstein from the New York Knicks, bruising center. That really came on last year for the Knicks in their playoff run. And had it not been for injuries, I think the Knicks would have given Boston a little more of a challenge in that series than Indiana did, simply because of how they can match up defensively and bruise you up and beat you up front. The Knicks also added Mikal Bridges from the Brooklyn Nets. uniting with his Villanova brethren Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo, and excuse me, Jalen Brunson. So the Villanova reunion in New York is about to be fun to watch here in the coming season. Now, moving on to the WNBA and what has been the most attention grabbing season in recent memory for me for the WNBA, and that's because of two young ladies in particular, not just them, because Asia Wilson for the Aces is still the best player in the league, but the rookies, Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. So, who is the rookie of the year? In my opinion, I think Angel Reese is the rookie of the year, but so is Caitlin Clark. Um, so I'm just gonna go through a few of these stat lines for you, the team records and things like that, for these two young ladies and their teams, the Chicago Sky and Indiana Fever, respectively. The Sky currently have an 8-12 record. The Fever currently have a 9-13 record. So the win percentage is nearly the same. 400, 400 win percentage for the Sky, 409 for the Fever. So they're kind of neck and neck in that playoff race. Both teams are 8.5 games back from the New York Liberty and Connecticut Sun in the East. So now we look at the stat lines. Clark is averaging 16.1 points per game, 6 rebounds and 7 assists. Angel Reese is averaging 14.1 with 11.9 rebounds and 1.9 assists per game. So this race is far from over. And if it were me, if I had to hand out a mid-season Rookie of the Year trophy, it would definitely be a co-Rookie of the Year, similar to the way Grant Hill and Jason Kidd shared that honor back in the 90s. Now, another thing about this matchup, about this rivalry, this growing rivalry that these two ladies have, is it reminds me of Magic and Bird. It reminds me of Magic Johnson versus Larry Bird coming up in their careers, being two guys that always competed against each other and ended up meeting in that fateful 1979 national championship game. It might not have been 79, but I don't have the stats right in front of me, but you get what I'm saying. It was Magic versus Bird, Indiana State versus Michigan State. Magic going on to win that game and going on to the NBA to win a championship his rookie season. Bird would follow 2 seasons later with his first NBA title, and you just see the similarities there. What they're doing to the basketball culture as a whole, what they're doing to mainstream America who may not watch women's basketball on the norm. Now they have an opinion. Now these ladies are being talked about at the front of the hour. And it's awesome, man. It's awesome for the WNBA. The Olympics are coming up. Neither one of these young ladies are on the team, but I expect them to be on the team in 4 years. Just so much excitement around basketball that we've not normally had during the summer, except for these Olympic years. So I'm glad to be talking about basketball deep into July. Now, moving on to some NFL, some NFL news, some NFL football. How are we feeling about our teams coming into the season? Now, we've got to talk about those Dallas Cowboys, of course. It's not let's argue unless we talk about Charmer Moore's favorite team, the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the talk on the street is, how are they going to sign all three of these players, right? How do they sign Dak Prescott? How do they re-sign CeeDee Lamb? How do you keep Micah Parsons in the fold? And I'm here to tell you guys, I don't think they're going to be able to do it unless somebody takes a massive pay cut. I do not see Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Michael Parsons playing together beyond this season. Dak Prescott, we all know his contract situation. We all know what he's looking for in a contract. He wants to be one of those top paid guys, and deservedly so. He's carried the Cowboys a long way, and I don't see a better option for them out there. So I say you pay Dak first. You pay the quarterback, because these receivers are coming out of college. You look at a Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors. You just look at this wide receiver class alone, and you see all these young receivers coming out. But for some reason, NFL teams cannot get the quarterback right. So Dak had a amazing regular season, and granted, that season ended sooner than most expected. But I feel that Dak Prescott is the best option for the Cowboys, and the Cowboys are the best option. Well, may not be the best option for Dak, as once he hits free agency, that number is going to command upward into the $50 million per year range. Now, you talk about CD Lamb. I love CD Lamb as a player, but like I said, you have to prioritize the quarterback over the wide receiver position. Just strictly team building. But CD Lamb is an excellent receiver. He's going to get his money wherever he goes, whether it's in Dallas, in another place, he's going to get his money. He's a top 5 receiver today. Now moving on to Michael Parsons, this is a guy you cannot lose under any circumstance. Of the three, I think they could recover from losing CD, but you can't recover from losing a talent like Michael Parsons on defense. Now, we do know he loves to pod. We do know that he has other interests, but when you look at a guy who, in my opinion, he hasn't even hit his prime yet, and you look at what he's been able to do from a defensive standpoint, changing the game, changing the blocking schemes, lining up multiple positions, you got to keep Micah Parsons and build around him. That secondary is still going to be really, really good. Trevon Diggs is on his way back to recovery from that gruesome injury he suffered last year. But if Trevon Diggs and Deron Bland and those guys can hold it down on the back end, and you get a little more stout up front, they did add Malik Hooker at safety. That Dallas defense could be special if they can learn to stop the run, and Michael Parsons is going to be a big part of that. I think he's going to focus his game. I am a big Michael Parsons fan, so I do believe that you have to keep Mr. Parsons in the fold. Now, moving on, we're going to stay in the NFC East for a second and talk about the Philadelphia Eagles and what they did in the offseason. I mean, you re-signed Devontae Smith. He's in the fold now. You got your weapons. A.J. Brown's got his money. And then you add Saquon Barkley. I mean, this offense could be dangerous if we have a guy like Jalen uh, Hurts that he has a bounce back year and continues to develop as a passer. Philadelphia is going to be right back in the mix. He doesn't have to take as many hits. He's going to be a lot healthier down the stretch with Saquon back there carrying the load. And I think with that offensive line, even though they lost Jason Kelsey, that new center they got, I do not have his name in front of me right now, but I was watching some videos of him just blowing guys up on pulling blocks, and I'm like, okay, they could be even more explosive in the run game this year. So watch out for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think they're going to have something to say in that division once again. Uh, Staying in that division as well, we might as well cover all 4 teams, right? The New York Giants. I think the New York Giants defense is going to be a lot more formidable than it was a year ago. I think the offense could be better with Daniel Jones coming back, but you do lose your biggest weapon in Saquon. Um, but you do add Malik Neighbors, who I was very high on coming out of LSU. So I think the Giants will be a little bit better, but they will still be at the bottom of this division. Now, Washington Commanders. They do add Jaden Daniels with the number 2 pick in the draft. I am very high on Jaden Daniels of the quarterbacks in this draft. He was my favorite because he played in the SEC. He beat Alabama. Um, when he had weapons, he knew how to get the ball to them, and he delivered that deep ball pretty nicely towards the end of the season. Now, he did have some underthrows early on, from what I could tell. I don't know if that was from a injury from camp or something like that, but the deep balls and the connection with the receivers, Neighbors, and Brian Thomas Jr. was very good down the stretch. So I'm looking for Jaden Daniels to really add something to Washington. Be on the lookout too. They could add Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk is not happy in San Francisco with his contract situation. We all are aware of that, but be on the lookout for that. If they can get a Brandon Ayuk, match him up with Terry McLaurin, you got Austin Eckler back there in the backfield catching passes, and they did draft a very athletic tight end by the name of Ben Sinnott. Be on the lookout for Washington to be a lot better and maybe even compete in the wild card. You know, we will also talk about the AFC East. I guess we'll just, until football season leads up, we'll just talk about each conference and each division and roll it like that. So let's go over to the AFC East because we have a lot of interesting stuff going on over there in that division. Starting off with the Buffalo Bills. Losing Stephon Diggs, it was very ugly at the end. We all kind of saw it play out. He's now in Houston with the Texans and CJ Stroud. So we'll see what they can do. But Buffalo adding Keon Coleman from FSU. Now, as a Miami fan, I'm glad to see this guy go. He was a contested ball scorer. He could definitely go up and get that thing, and he's a definite red zone threat. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do in Buffalo in that ice cold weather, along with Khalil Shakir and those guys. Now with the Miami Dolphins, I think with the departure of Diggs from Buffalo, that easily slides Miami as the best team in the division, in my opinion. You've got, you've got the speed demons, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Chain, Raheem Mostart. And then they add Jalen Wright out of Tennessee, a guy who I was very, very high on in my fantasy football analysis. He had the great combine, played in the SEC, he's got the profile. Jalen Wright could be that guy to eventually take the role that Mostert has going down the stretch. But they've also improved their secondary, man. I hear this guy Cam Smith for the Dolphins is legit. He's been balling out. They also add Kendall Fuller to that mix, along with Jalen Ramsey's already been there, and Javon Holland. So the Dolphins defense could actually be a lot better this year to go along with that high-powered offense. So I'm looking for them to go, hey, 11-6, 10-7. That's definitely within the range for the Dolphins, and who knows, they could have a deep playoff run if that defense plays just as well as the offense did last year. Now, the New York Jets, the most controversial team in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers coming back off of the Achilles injury. Uh, over 40. Is he still the man? We will find out. We will find out. I am on pins and needles because I have him in some of my fantasy leagues in the dynasty. So I'm going to need Aaron to have a bounce back year if I'm going to have a chance. But the defense is the defense, and they added guys. They added Hassan Reddick. So I'm looking for the Jets to be a lot better than what we saw last year. Brees Hall's coming back from his late season injury, and he looked like a hoss, even though the passing game was non-existent. So I'm anxious to see what he can do when he has a competent passing game around him to take the pressure off. Now, the last team in this division, that's going to be your New England Patriots. That dynasty from the early 2000s and mid 2000s, and that's just now slowed down, right? But they add Drake May, who, in my opinion, was the hardest quarterback to evaluate simply because playing in the ACC, he didn't really have a lot of games where he just dominated like some of these other top end quarterbacks, but he did beat my Miami Hurricanes, and I tell you, he looked good doing it. So we'll see what the theory is on Drake May, but Jacoby Brissett is going to be the starter week one, if you ask me. But the Patriots, I think they've got a few more years of rebuilding, but I like Gerard Mayo and I like what he does with that defense. So maybe that rebuild doesn't take as long as we all think it will. But hey guys, this is the end of our return season 2 of Let's Argue. I'm going to bring this to a close as I have to get ready to travel abroad for the first time. So who knows? Maybe we'll do a live over there in the UK if we can, if we have time, if my significant other allows me to, you know. She's got a lot planned for us, man. I hope I get to see Wembley Stadium. If I do, I will do a live from Wembley Stadium so you guys can check it out with me. I appreciate all of the love that we've had on the Facebook page. We've reached 5,000 friends. We can't we can't accept any more friend requests, y'all. And that's awesome. Thank you for 5K in just 5 short months. That's amazing. I appreciate all of the um participation in our post over there. So even though I can't accept your friend request, please follow at Playhard. That's gonna be the Let's Argue page there. And quick shout out to my Panama City people and the News Herald, who had a crazy, crazy sports article last week, and we covered it, and it kind of was one of the most explosive arguments on the page that we ever had, and that was the Mount Rushmore of the local high schools. I don't know who came up with this list, y'all. I don't. I really do not. But they had to be trolling because they had so many people up in arms, including me. First of all, Bay High School. That's right, Bay County, Florida. Bay High School. Okay, you cannot have a Mount Rushmore of athletic personalities if you do not have the man Mac Pittman on that thing. Because if you were in Panama City at the time when this man was playing high school football, hey man, it might as well have been Tommy Frazier or Charlie Ward every Friday night in Bay County. Because I'm telling you, this guy was amazing. 2,000 yards rushing and passing. Only got to start offense and defense in the Florida Georgia game at the time. Mac Pittman, shout out to him, man. If I ever find him, if you're a listener and you know where Mac Pittman is, man, tell him to get with the show. We love to interview him. Now, one more shout out before I go on this local Mount Rushmore thing, and that was Rutherford High School in Panama City, Florida, as well. The Rutherford Rams. Hey, first of all, you can't have a Mount Rushmore without the Harden family on it. That's Coach Harden. That's his sons, Blake and Matt. They put Rutherford football into another stratosphere in the late 90s and early 2000s. Shout out to them. But also, big, big, big shout out to the first African American player in the SEC, Vanderbilt grad, and my old teacher, Douglas Nettles. Hands down should be in the top four. I think that was highway robbery that you didn't have him in the top four News Herald. So he didn't get his flowers from the News Herald. So he's going to get it from Let's Argue, man. Shout out to Douglas Nettles and his family. So with that being said, man, this is Jay Playhard, and I'm going to sign out. I will see you guys next week from the UK, baby. So yeah, just tap in. Follow that Facebook page. Follow my TikTok at Jay Playhard 1984. And yeah, this is Let's Argue. Have a great day.